Just before 4:30 this afternoon, the Gwinnett County Police Department received a 911 call from a 17-year-old male stating that he was armed with a knife and a handgun and that he was a danger to himself and others. Officers immediately responded to the location, and prior to responding, our behavioral health unit was notified. Our behavioral health unit, a behavioral health, a licensed mental health technician was a clinician. I'm sorry, let me start that over with. Sorry, guys. A licensed mental health clinician immediately contacted the male over the phone before officers arrived and began speaking with him before officers could get on scene. That clinician spoke with the male and learned that he was depressed and that he was suicidal. As officers initially responded to the scene, they discovered the male standing in the roadway near the cul-de-sac. Those officers began to negotiate with the male while he was still on the phone with the licensed mental health clinician. As officers were speaking with the male, he began charging at them in a full sprint. As they approached the officers, he stabbed towards one of the officers, and two of the officers shot at the male, striking him at least one time. The Gwinnett County Police Department, the Gwinnett County Fire Department was immediately contacted and responded to the scene. However, the male died on the scene from his injuries. This case is going to be handed over to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation per our policy, and future comments about the investigation will come through them.
Obviously, the fifth time within the last week, metro Atlanta area that police, local law enforcement have been shot at. Just talk about how difficult it's been for all types of law enforcement this week in the Atlanta area.
Well, keep in mind, our officers were not shot at in this instance. He was armed with a knife. The male did charge at the officers in a full sprint and attempt to stab at one of the officers before he was shot. So our officers responded to the force by firing at the male.
When he was running towards officers, was he armed with a gun or a knife?
The male was armed with a knife as he sprinted towards the officers.
Was the hope here that this could have been resolved before the suspect charged at the officers?
Our behavioral health unit was immediately contacted to try and resolve this situation prior to officers even arriving on scene. As our officers even arrived to the scene, the behavioral health clinician continued to speak with that male. She tried to talk him down, tried to get him to cooperate with officers, and let him know that she was on her way to the location.
The person who died has been identified?
At this time, we're withholding the name of the person involved until the next of kin can be notified.
Has there been any more officer-involved run-ins with this person? Has it been that you had to come out here before?
At this time, I don't have information on the history of the male or whether or not he's had any previous interactions with the Gwinnett County Police Department. At this point, it's still a preliminary investigation. The GBI is going to be taking over as the lead investigative agency, but as of right now, we're still in the preliminary process of figuring out what's going on.
I know on the call that the boy had expressed that he was a danger to himself and others. When officers got to the scene, was it clear that others were in danger?
When officers first arrived on scene, the male was in the roadway. Officers began to cordon off the roadway to try and speak with the male and negotiate with him, and he was also on the phone with that licensed clinician. While they were speaking with the male and the clinician was on the phone with him, that is when he began sprinting towards officers.
Do you think that if the officers were not on scene, that this could have been resolved differently?
I can't comment on that. Yeah.
He tried to attack another people before he shot the officer?
When the male first called 911, one of the first statements that he made was that he was armed with a gun and a knife and that he was a danger to himself and others.
Was there any gun to your knowledge?
At this time, we're still investigating whether or not the male was armed with a gun. I don't have that information at this time.
How long do you expect crews to be out here? Are neighbors allowed to go in their homes, or is the road locked off?
Officers are going to assist people with getting to their homes. We anticipate that this area will be closed off for at least the next couple of hours while the GBI arrives and conducts the initial part of their investigation as well.
When the guy called in, did he say which weapons he had or anything like that?
When the male called 911, one of the first comments that he made was that he was armed with a knife and a gun and that he was a danger to himself and others.
Are we near his home?
I don't have that information just yet. Yeah.
How are you guys feeling as a department knowing that this happened, obviously in light of these other law enforcement involved shootings?
The Gwinnett County Police Department is beginning the process of their investigation with the GBI, and at this time we're just working on identifying exactly what happened out here today.
What do you say to this boy's family?
The police department and the GBI will be in contact with the person's family as we identify him and learn more about this case.
Do you feel like after these incidents, I mean, there is more of a spotlight on mental health, obviously, but still building that trust as well from the community who, you know, may hear this and may still have more questions and want more answers. How do you explain this to them?
Well, we would like to highlight that the Gwinnett County Police Department has a behavioral health unit that has licensed clinicians that respond to these scenes. And in this particular incident, that behavioral health unit was immediately utilized. That clinician immediately got on the phone with the male and began trying to talk with him and get the medical services that he needed.
Would maybe in future instances having that clinician on scene in person, do you think that could have helped at all?
I can't say whether or not it would have made a difference had the clinician been on scene or not. At this time, we're still trying to identify exactly the motivations behind what happened here tonight.
Has that happened before? Will they come out in person on a scene, or do they typically work over the phone?
Our behavioral health unit works with certified police officers. So our typical behavioral health unit has one police officer and one certified clinician in the car with them. So those two will respond to calls throughout the day here in Gwinnett County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Did you say your name?
Oh,
on
yeah.
there?
Oh yeah, hey, it's Sergeant Colin Flynn, COLLINFLYNN.